All right. So you want to take the PMI-RMP certification. But before you buy any study materials or sign up for the course, you need to answer one question. Do you actually qualify for it? Today, I'm breaking down the complete eligibility requirements, what experience counts, what education you need, and the 5-year rule that can trip a couple people up. So let's make sure you are ready to apply for this exam. The RMP, like the PMP and other PMI credentials, have 3 requirements to sit for the exam: education, experience, and training. And all 3 of these must be met before you can actually apply to sit for that exam. So let me break these down one by one. First up, we have education. Your education is going to help determine how much experience you need to qualify for taking the exam. There are 3 paths depending on your level of education, like a high school degree, a associate's degree, bachelor's degree, or a GAC accredited course. And PMI does accept the global equivalency of each of these levels of education. The first question I usually get here, though, is, Russ, what is a GAC accredited course? The GAC accredited course is a project management or related program that has been independently certified by Project Management Institute's Global Accreditation Center. So if you take a course like this, you're most likely going to know because you've taken it at a college or specialized program that is listed as a GAC. They're going to tell you if it's that. So with each of these different levels, it comes with its own experience requirements behind it. If you have a high school diploma, an associate's degree, or a global equivalent, you need 36 months, 3 years of risk management experience and 40 contact hours of training to take the exam. Or if you graduated from a GAC accredited program, you only need 12 months of experience and 30 contact hours to actually sit for the exam. Plus, that GAC coursework can fulfill the training requirements automatically, but I highly do not recommend doing that. Something we can talk about in a later video. Most PMPs, they're going to fall into that bachelor's degree category, 24 months and 30 hours of training. Now, the critical part when it comes to this whole piece of sitting for the exam is that experience. And what trips people up is that it has to be specialized risk management experience. This is not general project management. You can't just say, I was a project manager, I've done risk management. You have to do specific risk management activities, and it has to be over the last 5 consecutive years before you submit your application. Consecutive means that your experience cannot overlap. If you've worked on 2 projects for 12 months each, and for the last 3 months of project 1, you started working on project 2, that only equates to 21 months of experience, not 24. And what counts as that experience is leading risk identification sessions, performing risk analysis, developing risk response planning, and monitoring and controlling your different risks. What PMI is looking for is professional work where risk management was the core responsibility and not just something you did. Things that don't count for this are school projects, personal events like planning a wedding, or general project management where you occasionally thought about risk management. If risk management wasn't a defined part of your role, then it doesn't count. So here's how to test it for yourself. Could you describe a specific risk management task that you performed? And did you use risk management tools and techniques? And was it documented? If yes, it counts. If you just considered risks informally, it doesn't count. The experience that you have doesn't have to be paid, but it needs to be done in a professional setting with real organizational stakes behind the risks. And the 5-year rule is strict. All your experience needs to come from 5 consecutive years before you can submit that application. If you did extensive risk management work from 2015 to 2018, but nothing since, that does not equate to something you could put on your 2025 application. But PMI wants to certify people on who are actively practicing, not people who did risk a decade ago, because they want to make sure that you are up to date on risk management processes. So before you apply, make sure you're calculating backwards from the day you're taking the exam. Can you document 24 months. That's 2 years of risk management work within the past 5 years. If not, you're going to need to gain more experience first. And if you can, you're clear on the experience and you're good to actually apply to take the exam. And then last, you have the contact hours. This is the formal education specifically needed in project risk management. 1 hour of classroom instruction equals 1 contact hour. So if you took a 3-hour course that met once a week for 15 weeks, that's 45 contact hours. If only a part of that course actually covered risk management, like most PMP exam prep courses, the only hours you can count are what actually talked about risk management. So make sure whatever course you're taking is specifically directed towards risk management and studying for the PMI-RMP. PMI recently came out with an authorized training partner curriculum that was built by them that will completely hit all of the requirements to sit for the exam. And it gives you all the critical information you need to actually pass. University courses on risk management, they can help. Distance learning, like on Udemy, or courses I put up at 44riskpm.com, these can help you with the risk management studying. But to put them as contact hours, you need to make sure that they actually come with an end of course assessment. Things that don't qualify are PMI chapter meetings, unless there's a 1 hour of structured learning that is actively focused on risk management. Self-directed learning, like reading books or watching videos or coaching sessions, although these are critical to your success, they don't meet the educational contact hours that you need to qualify for sitting in that room and taking that exam. And don't forget, any coursework you do has to be completed before you submit your application. You can't count the hours that you plan to do in the future. So if you're interested in this piece, now's a good time to mention that PMI, RMP, ATP curriculum, I am an instructor for that. And I run PMI, RMP exam prep courses quarterly, usually on the weekends. And I'm constantly building new risk management courses that you can find at 44riskpm.com under courses. Now, once you meet all the requirements, what do you do next? Well, if you haven't taken another certification like the PMP or the ACP, real quick, what you have to do is go online, pmi.org, and complete the online application. There, you're going to document your experience, project by project, and you're going to list your education and contact hours. The application stays open for 90 days, so if you need to save it in return, you have plenty of time. Before submitting, you're going to have to agree to the PMI's Code of Ethics and the certification agreement. You need to make sure your email's correct and that you actually have a certificate that you can load that says you did the contact hours and that you have the educational requirement to sit for that exam per the amount of time needed in that experience. But you want to check that email because that's how PMI is going to communicate with you throughout the process. And after you submit it, PMI reviews your application. If approved, you're going to receive an eligibility code and authorization letter that you can actually use to purchase the exam and schedule out up to 1 year, at which point you can take and hopefully pass that exam. The initial exam fees will be paid once you get the approval letter from PMI. And the cost for the exam is going to be dictated on whether you're a PMI member or not. PMI membership reduces the cost significantly. So if you haven't looked into that, definitely recommend you do. And if you don't pass, re-examination fees are discounted. And you get 3 attempts within one eligible 1-year window before you are put on a hiatus and they're told to take some time, reevaluate, and start studying again. It's also important to note that when you submit your application, there is an opportunity to get audited by PMI, where they're going to go through and verify your experience and your education. So make sure you have all your documentation ready, course certificates, manager signatures, project records, and the ability to reach out to people who can talk about how you actually worked on those projects in risk management specifically. All right, now you know exactly whether you qualify and how to apply for the PMI-RMP exam. If you meet the requirements, don't wait. Start your application today. The 1-year eligibility window starts after it gets approved, not after you feel ready. Once you're approved, you'll need a solid study plan. That's where my PMI-RMP exam prep course comes in. It's complete coverage of the domains, practice questions. It gives you all your contact hours while getting to listen to me and talk to me for 30 hours. Link is in the description below if you want to check out some future training dates. Now, if you have any questions about anything I talked about, Drop a comment. Let me know where you are in this process. What questions do you have? And if this cleared up any confusion, hit subscribe. I've got a complete PMI-RMP series coming out every Monday for the rest of 2025. And that if you're thinking about the RMP, you're not going to want to miss. See you next week. I'm Russ Parker, the Bearded PM. Out.